Oh, the 80s. A time of tracksuits, leg warmers, and neon lights. Oh, and don't forget the hairspray, because those 80s dudes were huge. I mean, what did Dolly Parton once say? Oh yeah, the higher the hair, the closer to God. Sage words. And along with the big hair, the 1980s also provided us with some big tunes, which ran the gamut of disco, country, pop, the emergence of rap. Basically anything and everything was welcome. And some truly great music came from this flashy decade. Bands like Iron Maiden and Metallica were rockin' hard, while Prince and the Pixies were doing their thing. I mean, Take On Me, I Wanna Dance With Somebody, Billie Jean. The 1980s hits? Well, they still hit. But this musically diverse decade also had some bands that were, well, popular, but maybe not so great. In fact, you could say that some of these were even actively hated. And today we're looking at some of the most hated bands from the 1980s. And we want to know, were you in the first row sporting a tracksuit and a handlebar mustache? Well, let me grab my acid wash jeans and we'll get started right now. Dare I say we could even get physical. As always, if you dig what we're cooking, click that thumbs up icon for us. And subscribe to the channel to avoid being left in the dust. Don't you want me? Is what the Human League asked us. And today we're going to find out the answer. Now hit that music so we can tell you
what happened.
Wham! The infamous George Michael, alongside friend Andrew Ridgeley, made up Wham, an English pop group who rose to fame in 1982. This duo was known for singles like Wake Me Up Before You Go Go. Of course you know that song. It was a #1 hit in both the US and the UK, and it sounded more like something that would be found in high school auditoriums for senior showcase. I think it was clear to most people that this duo had an identity crisis, and when they performed at a miners' strike benefit in 1984, the media roasted them like they were teleported to the wrong stage, the wrong event. British publication Melody Maker stated, quote, "Wham greatly pleased the 3 rows of young girls at the back of the hall and left everybody else stone-faced and baffled." Yikes. Wham then became one of the first Western pop groups to hold a public tour in China in 1985. They traveled across the country for 10 days. The whole thing felt more like a publicity stunt than a tour, and a documentary film was shot while they toured, released as Wham in China, Foreign Skies. But with a glossy, overly perfect image. I mean, their slogan was "Choose Life," which they sported visibly on their white t-shirts. The whole thing was just a little too peachy keen. Their main audience was teens, and most adult listeners found their forced positivity to be tiresome and inauthentic. The group split in 1986, but don't worry, George and Andrew remained good friends. They were just aware that their respective careers were moving in vastly different directions. Bon Jovi. Bon Jovi was created in the early 80s, known for bridging the gap between heavy metal and pop with style and ease. And this made them very radio friendly and parentally cleared. So real metal fans and rock and roll gurus, well, they sneered at the John Bon Jovi-led group. But Bon Jovi had quite a few successful songs in the 80s. Their 1986 record, Slippery When Wet, spent 8 weeks at #1 on the Billboard charts, and came from it 3 #1 singles, including You Give Love a Bad Name and Livin' on a Prayer, which as of today has sold over 12 million copies, meaning it is one of the best-selling albums of all time in the US. So yeah, despite the hate from the true rocker saying John can't sing, you gotta give the man charisma. He's got it in spades. And Bon Jovi is still living on a prayer. But some simply didn't like that John was a good businessman. He knew how to work both sides, and his level head kept the band on top. Truly, nobody was going to give John Bon Jovi a bad name. The Smiths. The Smiths were formed in 1982 and known for their underground indie rock. They were from the UK and enjoyed a lot of success over there. But they released some music in the mid-80s which people found controversial. But the band claimed there was nothing controversial about the music. In February 1984, the group released their debut album, The Smiths. And two of the songs, Reel Around the Fountain and The Hand That Rocks the Cradle, were both met with controversy, some alleging that the songs were suggestive of pedophilia, a claim strongly denied by the group. Then Meat Is Murder was their second album, released in 1985, and it became the band's only album to reach #1 on the UK albums chart, and stayed on the chart for 13 weeks. Then they released a song about the Moors murders.
Over the moor, take me to the moor.
And some of the families affected were outraged. So the band met with them and explained that they weren't trying to exploit the murders, but were trying to, quote, explore the impact of the murders. Well, some of the family members accepted this answer. Many of the band members had issues with drugs and alcohol, which led to firings and replacings. But the band broke up in 1987 over monetary and legal issues. They've all refused offers to reunite, and the legal issues stretched on and on. But while the band split, many of its members, especially Morrissey, enjoyed a lot of solo success too. But many fans of the Smiths, minus a few of their more popular singles, truly cringe when thinking about those depressing years. Duran Duran. Duran Duran was most well known for their high-quality music videos on MTV, both in the early 80s and early days of MTV. Their quality was so superior to their competitors that they won 2 awards at the 26 Grammys in '83. They truly were the kings of pop in the 80s. They were also known for changing the way stadium shows were held. They innovated the technological side of live shows, the first to utilize the newest video tech in their live performances, which made their concerts just as exciting as those music videos. But the same qualities that made them pop were the reasons a lot of hardcore music fans despised them. They represented the glamorous side of the 80s, the consumer-geared music, which really rubbed some rockers the wrong way. And with the amount of screaming teenage girls following them around, many people saw Duran Duran as more of a boy band. By the end of the 80s, music styles began to shift, and Duran Duran disappeared for a while. But the group never officially disbanded, and they did have a bit of a resurgence in the 90s, but they will never reach the height of the 1980s. U2. U2 formed in Ireland in the mid-70s, but they became huge in the 80s, and are still very much active today. The band has a reputation for being socially and politically conscious with their lyrics, which can kinda get tiring. But their album Joshua Tree, released in 1987, made them international superstars. This album is their most successful, and I'll be honest, it's good. But you can't listen to U2 without a heavy dose of Bono, who many find to be highly annoying. And then they decided to take part in the most genius marketing plan ever, geared at turning everyone in the world against them. When Apple downloaded the U2 album to everyone's account without asking, and you couldn't get it off. It was like those tags on mattresses. Do not remove, but why? Please, I really want to. In the words of U2, I still haven't found what I'm looking for. It really was a quick way to enrage new fans, who otherwise would have never had that deep anger towards them. Poison. Look what the cat dragged in. Poison formed in the US in the mid-80s, and had several top 40 hits with their glam metal sound. Hits like Every Rose Has Its Thorns, and I Won't Forget You. It's quite frankly impossible to forget them. I mean, they took the power ballad and cashed it in a number of times. But most people think their glam metal was just too focused on making money, not enough about rockin' out. The Grateful Dead. Does anyone remember those short shorts that Bob Weir wore in the 80s? Yeah, those definitely need to stay in the 80s. Let's just leave the short shorts to Daisy Duke. But while we're at it, maybe we should leave some of the Grateful Dead albums there as well. The Grateful Dead was an American rock band formed in the 60s, and proud fans are hardcore fans, aptly called Deadheads. This band had their best albums in the 70s. But their 1987 record In the Dark was a bit of a resurgence for the band and had their only top 10 hit, Touch of Grey. Some people don't like the Grateful Dead's music because they find it slow-paced. Others simply don't like the fans, citing violence from many of them. I'm not so sure I've experienced overly aggressive Deadheads, unless of course you insult their 1970 classic album, American Beauty. Then you better be ready to duke it out. Motley Crue. Motley Crue formed in the early 80s and had several successful albums and sold millions of copies, but they're best known for their live performances, which have a huge production scale, involving all kinds of pyrotechnics. But the hate for Motley Crue goes right to their wild lifestyles. These guys partied hard, and unless you were a true metalhead, you probably weren't rushing to the record store so you could hear their song Bastard. But I'll be honest, their 1989 song Dr. Feelgood is one heck of a feel-good tune. So please give me some more in the comments below and change my mind from hate to rock. Which band should not have been included on this list, and which band from the 1980s is the absolute worst? Were they on this list? If not, please add them in the comments below. We read them all. And if you enjoyed revisiting the 1980s with us, consider clicking that thumbs up icon and subscribe to the channel for more episodes. But thanks for rocking out with us today. We'll see you next time so we can tell you what happened.